Over the course of your day-to-day operations, your customers are going to be sending in payments from the balances they owe based on the invoices that you send them. To process those payments, click Receive Payments on the home screen. This is going to bring us into the Customer Payments section. Depending on how you left it last, any of these sections could automatically be selected, or nothing might be. In this case, I'm still selecting Check because let's suppose that I have a big stack of checks in front of me. The first thing I need to do is specify who the check is from. In the Receive From area, I can choose the customer. In this case, Callie Reynolds has sent in a check based on the outstanding invoices that I sent her. QuickBooks, on the top right-hand side, though it may be hard for you to see, will tell me what the customer balance currently is. There's a few ways that I can process this payment. The easiest way is to click inside the payment amount field and write down the total number that's on her check. If I hit Tab or click in any other field, you'll notice that a check mark has now appeared next to this invoice. QuickBooks is smart enough to recognize that the payment amount she sent is the same amount that was on the invoice total, so the money is probably going toward that particular invoice. There is another way that I could handle this. Instead of putting the total amount she sent me into the payment amount field, I can also manually place check marks next to all the payments that she's sending in. If I choose to do this, QuickBooks needs to know that it's okay to automatically calculate the payment amount, so I'll click Yes here. For example, I've selected one invoice, and the total amount due of $150.04 is automatically put in the payment amount field. If I select both of them, if she's paying off both the invoices with one check, I select both, and the payment amount will update to reflect the balance of those two invoices. I can also put a reference here, such as check number. When I'm all done, I can either click Save and New at the bottom of the screen to continue processing more checks, or Save and Close. This is a quick way to go through and process all checks that come in every day from different customers. Let's go into the chart of accounts now. We have a new account in the chart of accounts called Undeposited Funds. You'll notice in the Undeposited Funds account, there's a balance total. This is the amount of the check that Callie Reynolds sent in. If I check my mail every day and there's a big stack of checks and I go through it and process those payments in QuickBooks, it takes the value of all of those checks and groups it into this account item called Undeposited Funds. At the end of the day, when I make my business deposit, it's going to be for a large sum of money, totaling the value of all those checks, and it should match this number right here in the balance total. The reason for this is when I reconcile my QuickBooks deposit with my bank statement deposits, these two figures need to match. If I had that one check from Callie Reynolds and I deposited it all by itself, then I later deposited another group of checks in QuickBooks. If this number is the number of both checks combined, then the two transactions won't match. It's very important that you match in QuickBooks with what's going on in the real world. We'll talk about this a little bit more when we cover how to make the actual deposit and record that in QuickBooks. But if you see this undeposited funds in the chart of accounts, it's for any payment that you've received and processed in QuickBooks, but you haven't actually physically gone to the bank and deposited yet. It is possible to send Callie a receipt for this payment. I'll close out of the chart of accounts. I'm going to go back to the Customer Center by clicking Customers on the home page. I'll select Callie Reynolds, who now has a zero balance because she's paid all of her invoices. If I double-click on any of these invoices to open them up, I can see that they're now flagged as being paid in QuickBooks, and down at the bottom, they have a zero balance due. If I select Print and then Preview, you can see that there's a nice big paid stamp and the date over that invoice. So from here, I can either print out a receipt or I can click Close. Either way, if I print or email them an invoice, it's going to have that paid flag on it. I can close out of this, and this is how you can receive your payments in QuickBooks.